If you mention Patpong to certain people, quite a few unsavoury associations come to mind, and that is completely understandable. But I've been looking into the history of this area, and Patpong is like a jigsaw with many pieces. Each one of those pieces has its own bit of interesting history. I'm going to attempt to put those all together for this video. So welcome to Patpong. Nowadays, Patpong is definitely showing its age, and a lot of these 1950s shop houses are on the rather shabby side, to say the least. If this area was ever up for sale, there'd be a long line of developers waiting to jump in, that's for sure. This is prime real estate. As you would expect, there are one or two mysteries in an area like this, like how did Foodland end up opening in a place like Patpong? But the biggest mystery, I think, is the CIA connection. I've never quite heard the full story, so we're going to talk to one of the experts right here at the Patpong Museum.
So it all traces back to the very origins of the Patpong Pat family, actually, who the founder, the father, he had his children, two sons, educated abroad. They went to study in the United States during the Second World War. And by belief, they joined the resistance movement, the seedy Thai movement, because they weren't happy with the Japanese occupation and the Japanese influence over Thailand during the Second World War. The seedy Thai were supported financially and logistically and in training by the OSS, which will later become the CIA. 1945, it is these two Patpong Pat brothers, Udom and Tongyu, who actually get parachuted via Sri Lanka back into Asia together with their, we could say, leader, Jim Thompson. But when they arrive in Thailand, basically the war is over, and it is their turn to see what they can do in business. They happen to see 1948, this plot of land that the father bought actually as a family residence. But they feel it's actually time to develop a commercial center, a modern central business district, which Bangkok doesn't have at that time. They built a road, they built buildings, modern infrastructure, as they saw in the US during their time of study there. Air conditioning, telegraphic cable access, and so forth, a modern infrastructure. And to populate it, they use their network into the CIA and are like, big business, big American corporations, please come and rent your space here. In a first step, it's IBM and big oil and gas companies that come here and become tenants. And as a kind of like hiding behind it, it's the CIA that's starting to take office here because the infrastructure is perfect. And there's a lot of interesting people around here, airline pilots, and so forth. Patpong in 1950 is the most modern developed infrastructure in Bangkok, which means Patpong has its own power plant providing electricity 24/7 to all its tenants, which provides air conditioning in all the rooms, which provides hot water in every room, and most important, access to the international telegraph lines. So they connected Patpong directly to the international cables, which is staple for news agencies, press agencies, airlines, anyone who needs real-time information, and of course, the secret services. And for the Secret Services, it was super convenient as you have all this front of legitimate business here. IBM had its headquarters actually right where we are talking right now. This is the switchboard from the Plaza Hotel, which you can see here. Every room had direct access to international telephone, to international lines. You had Associated Press here, UPI were here, the Foreign Correspondents Club had its constituting meeting here in Mizu Kitchen on Patpong 1. All the major airlines. Kind of hiding behind those airlines, you have Civil Air Transport, which is a CIA-owned airline, and later on, famous Air America, with its headquarters in Patpong 3.
So what happened when this kind of technology became obsolete? What happened to all these companies? Why did they eventually leave Patpong?
So for the first 20 years, from 1950 well into the 70s, it was corporate, and it faded over into entertainment. And so I'd say the heydays of entertainment are the mid-70s all the way into the 90s.
The Superstar Bar was famous for its David Bowie connection, and Bowie was just one of hundreds of celebrities who graced the streets of Patpong over the years. But one of my favourite films, The Deer Hunter, had scenes shot inside the Mississippi Queens Bar, and that was the first bar in the area to promote American soul music. Everywhere you look, walking up and down Patpong 1 Road, you see traces of the past in all directions. But one of the main questions I got asked before I did this video was, what was the first bar? Well, only the experts can answer that one.
The Grand Prix Bar was opened by a gentleman called Rick Menard, who was a GI in the Vietnam War. And he frequently passed by Bangkok, and when the war ended, he didn't want to leave. So in 1969, he opened what would become very famous, the Grand Prix Bar, as a sports bar. At that time, the entertainment licenses are being issued by the Ministry of Defense, as it was considered to be a matter of national security. Entertainment at that time is to be understood in the context of dancing and music, whereas dancing is a man and a woman dancing together, and music is a live band. So Rick Menard didn't have the means to get an entertainment license, so he put up a jukebox and he put up a wooden crate to separate physically the women from the men, and asked the women to dance on that wooden crate. And the police came in and were like, I got you, you're in trouble, you entertainment license. He was like, no, there is no dance here, because obviously they are separated, and I got a jukebox here. And he got away with it. And other people heard of that, and so one after the other put up a stage, put the women on the stage, played the music from the can, and yeah, that's the birth of the Go-Go Bar.
They have a corner in the Patpong Museum dedicated to David Bowie and his association with Patpong, and in particular the Superstar Bar, where he shot scenes for his film Ricochet. And I can't show any of those scenes in this video in particular because a little bit too risque. This area is dedicated to the serial killer Charles Sabras, who murdered mostly travellers and young backpackers in the 1970s, not just in Thailand but quite a few other countries as well. And he's still in jail and alive and well, and is probably making a few dollars off the recent 8-part Netflix series, if you like that sort of thing. And this map here gives locations of where he lived and had his parties and where he hung out. And one of those places where he hung out was Patpong. Chilling, definitely worth a watch. Bit of interesting history for you. First ever pizza baked in Thailand was done across the road there at a place called Madrid. That place kept its original facade right up until it closed earlier this year. That was where a restaurant called Mizu's used to be, and that was the first place in Thailand where you could get Japanese food. It was started by a group of soldiers who'd been stationed here during World War II. So one of the big questions is what exactly is going on in Patpong right at this very moment. It is Sunday night, the 12th of December. Restrictions are a little less restrictive, as you probably know. I'm going to walk down Patpong 1 and 2 roads and the alleyways in between, and you can see for yourself whether it's worth coming down here for a drink or two, or maybe something more. Well, as you can see, things are open. It's not full of punters, but I'm sure if you do come down, you'll get a warm welcome, particularly off this guy if you come down this alleyway. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the history and the mystery that is Patpong. Now you can go and mastermind with your specialist subjects of Patpong. I've got a channel as well. Please subscribe to it. There's a link in the description below. And until the next one, I'll see you soon.